Hey guys, welcome back to the Anime Collector. Now today, instead of anime, we're actually going to take a look at The Last Samurai. And the reason I want to talk about this film today is because I recently saw 47 Ronin, and you just can't look at a film like 47 Ronin without being reminded of The Last Samurai and drawing parallels between the two films. So, right off the bat, the first thing you'll notice, the first similarity you can see without even seeing the films themselves, is that 47 Ronin stars Keanu Reeves, and The Last Samurai stars Tom Cruise. So both films have a Caucasian lead in a Japanese setting playing samurai-type characters. Now here's the thing. Tom Cruise's character belongs in this film. At least in the sense that it requires a Caucasian actor, or rather, you couldn't tell this specific story with an all-Japanese cast. And what I mean by that is that, like, both films deviate from historical accuracies in order to be entertaining, and they both, in a way, are modified to appeal greater to a American audience. So, in the case of The Last Samurai, Tom Cruise's character is an American captain, and we're able to identify with his personality and stuff a little bit easier, and we're able to see where he's coming from, in that he is haunted by the things that he's done and been forced to do while at war with the Native Americans. And if he was Prussian, like he's supposed to be historically, we wouldn't be able to identify as easily without a lot more backstory and all that into whatever he'd be feeling in that situation. And we're able to identify a lot stronger with him because of the American mentality that he has, that we as Americans, for the American audience, have. Now, the thing with Keanu Reeves is that in 47 Ronin, there's absolutely no reason for him to be anything but Japanese. They make up this thing for this historical legend that he's half Japanese, half English, and he doesn't look Japanese at all. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit at all. So in that case, I personally think that the movie would have been better in 47 Ronin's case with a full Japanese cast. So one of the first things I noticed about 47 Ronin is how linearly it's edited. I would have taken out, personally, I would have taken out the first half hour of the film, cut it down into maybe 5 minutes, and told it through exposition and flashback. And I would have actually started the film at the point when Oishi, played by Hiroyuki Sanada, who actually is in Last Samurai, come to think of it. He plays Ujio in Last Samurai. I would have started it when Oishi is going to the docks to get Keanu Reeves and bring him back to to Akko. I think that that's the strongest part of the film, and it would have been a much better place to start because the beginning of the film is pretty boring. Now I will say that in the case of The Last Samurai, it's also a pretty linear story. There's no need to tell it out of order. But what they don't do with Last Samurai is they don't start the film in the middle of a battle. In the middle of the battle with the Native Americans, I should specify that. They don't start the film there. Instead, they utilize flashback and exposition in order to explain not only what has happened in the battles, but how Tom Cruise feels about it. And one of the places where they utilize this very well is when he's talking with Katsumoto, played by Ken Watanabe, and he's being Katsumoto's asking him who he served under, who was his general, and reluctantly Tom Cruise says, "I served under a lieutenant colonel named Custer." And Katsumoto's eyes get big, and he's like, "Oh, I know this name. I know this man. He's killed many warriors. He is a good general." And then you see Tom Cruise, and you can just see the disdain that he has for Custer as he says, he's not a great man. He is a fool who fell in love with his own legend and sent 1 battalion against 2,000 angry Native Americans. And in that incident, they're basically paralleling right there the mindset of the American captain and the mindset of the samurai. And when you can't help but come to a movie with your own mindset when you see a film. And in the case of The Last Samurai, especially in my experience seeing it, it's like, I love samurai films, But I do always feel kind of gypped when one of the main characters that you grow to like commits seppuku to save face, to die with honor. It just feels frustrating, to say the least. And you know, the thing about samurai stories is that because what the samurai value, and the Japanese value in the samurai, is their honor, samurai always die in samurai films. And in fact, at the end of 47 Ronin, I was like, wow, they lived? And then I'm like, they've got to die pretty soon. And then sure enough, spoiler alert, honestly, I'm not ruining anything. The film was pretty terrible. But spoiler alert, all 47 Ronin that are left, with the exception of one, commit seppuku in front of the shogun and just die. You know, it's just, it's frustrating, to say the least. Now, as an American, I look at seppuku differently than the Japanese. You know, I look at it as kind of a waste of a person's life. You know, when somebody is fighting and maybe they're captured or whatever, rather than kill themselves in order to die with honor, you know, if you can get away, you can come back and fight with more men. You know, it's just that you look at it differently. You know, for me, it's like you fight until you're dead. You don't just give up. That's what seppuku kind of feels like from an American mindset. And that's what's so powerful about this film, is that they portray it from both sides. They portray the samurai value and the American captain's value of life over death, and the samurai's value of honor over life, basically. And now that is, again, where 47 Ronin fails, because the film should just have an all-Japanese cast. Keanu Reeves, now I like Keanu Reeves in some films. He doesn't have a very strong range in acting, but he is suited for some roles. I really liked him in Constantine, although he doesn't look anything like the character from the Hellblazer comic. And I've liked him in The Matrix and stuff. I think he is suited to some roles, just not every role. Now, here's the thing, though. Like I said, it should have been an all-Japanese cast, because he doesn't bring the American mindset into it, because he's not even truly American. He's a half-breed who was completely raised with the Japanese honor mentality. And to a degree, that is a bit interesting. But at the end, it's like, yeah, even he commits seppuku. It's like, it falls short, in my opinion. And now, okay, here's something that I have been dying to be able to tell people through the internet. I want to jump ahead through personal history and all that. I want to jump straight to the title explanation. Now, The Last Samurai. This film has a very high respect for the Japanese language. 47 Ronin is completely in English. That was a really big pain in the butt, honestly. And this film has a very high respect for the Japanese language, and I just want to say, the most common misconception with The Last Samurai is that the film might as well be called Tom Cruise is The Last Samurai. Tom Cruise is not a singular final samurai. That's not what the film is about. Okay, like I said, this film has a very firm respect for the Japanese language. The plural form of the word samurai is not samurais, as the American mindset, the English mindset would tell you that's how it would be said. The plural form of the word samurai is samurai. They go out of their way in the film to call the group of samurai just samurai, not samurais. They respect the Japanese language. The film title, The Last Samurai, is not saying that Tom Cruise is the last samurai. Although you could even look at it that way, and it wouldn't be historically inaccurate in that regard. But the title is actually referring to all the samurai who fought for the old ways of Japan and died in the final battle. You know, another title that would make this a little bit clearer is if the movie was instead titled The Last of the Samurai. That would be a better way for you guys to possibly understand where it's coming from. But like I said, it is not unheard of for a Caucasian samurai to exist. I happen to know that several French soldiers had been given the title of samurai, given the two swords, called samurai by the emperor for the asset that they became to the Japanese people upon living in Japan in different scenarios. Seriously, more than one occasion have Caucasians been granted the title of samurai. Now, in this film, to jump around a lot, they do consider him samurai. I will say that. It's not necessarily driven directly out in your face as the audience. And something that I love about this film is how sparingly they actually choose to use subtitles. Now, the film is in English and Japanese, in that some of the characters speak predominantly English, some of the characters are predominantly Japanese, some people speak both. And they utilize subtitles sparingly. But what I mean by that is, for instance, there's conversations that happen between Tom Cruise and Taka's children. And again, you'd need to see the film to fully understand all this, and I don't want to just constantly be backing up and explaining everything. But he's talking with Taka's children, and he's basically learning the Japanese language through them. And they specifically chose not to subtitle everything, which was a smart decision, because that in turn puts you in the place of you're learning Japanese along with Tom Cruise, which is a really smart decision. And it's handled with a lot of respect, to say the least. And again, 47 Ronin, completely done in English, no point whatsoever. And one of the things that I love so much about The Last Samurai is that dialogue has so much more meaning to the audience when they read it as opposed to hearing it. And the subtitles, when they choose to have a character speaking in Japanese so that you will have to read something, just really, really masterfully chosen. And I realized I already skipped over something really important, but I was talking about Taka's children, and when I meant that when I said that they accept him as samurai, whether you as an audience know it or not, one of Taka's kids is doing calligraphy throughout the movie, and he gives Nathan Algren, Tom Cruise's character, he gives him this scroll, basically, that's rolled up, and when it unravels, it's the kanji for samurai. They accept him into their way of life. And it is not untrue to say that the title could actually refer to him as the last samurai, as well as also referring at the same time to the collective group of samurai, in that he does survive, which is uncommon for samurai films, and I personally think was a great choice, because I think that it makes the film more acceptable to an American audience, whereas, and I know it's gutsy for 47 Ronin to kill off Keanu Reeves along with all the other Ronin that lived through the attacks, but I don't necessarily think that it's widely acceptable for an American audience to go and see the film starring a Caucasian lead in a Japanese, world, and then have him die alongside with all the other samurai for an ideal that we don't necessarily embrace in America of the honorable suicide. And that's just my personal opinion. Now let's see, I want to talk about the DVD itself, actually. Let's talk about my personal history first, just kind of get that out of the way. I distinctly remember the first thing I saw about this film was not the trailer. It was actually the movie poster, the one with Tom Cruise on the horse holding the katana, and I was like, God, I've got to see this film. I have got to see this film. And to be honest with you, sort of like with Mad Bull, where I'm a little bit predisposed to loving it based on the fact that that I've been developing my own detective series since 2008. Before I started Dino Cops in 2008, I've been writing a fantasy samurai epic for even longer. And this came out in 2003, and that was right at the time when I was like really involved in this samurai story I was writing, and I was really excited to see this. And I also want to quickly mention, I'm going to actually talk about this in a second, I also want to quickly mention that I did actually, in the Devidossy review, I did actually go out of my way to not mention the fact that in the 1991 theatrical trailer for Terminator 2, they give away the plot twist that I went to great lengths to explain to you guys. And trailers can often do a disservice to a movie. I don't feel like trailers are made by the person who's trying to tell this story. Never. It seems like they're never done that way. Some trailers are really, really good. Some trailers are really, really bad. The trailer for The Last Samurai is not necessarily good or bad, but I don't think it does justice to the film itself. So if you saw the trailer and decided not to see it, you're missing out. Honestly, you really are, because it's a phenomenal film. Let's talk about the DVD now. So I have the 2-disc widescreen edition. I picked this up like probably the day it came out. I don't know, around that time. I got it really soon after it was released. And something that I want to do, that I've always wanted to do for every review, but I haven't had the opportunity yet, is whenever a critic is quoted on like the DVD, I want to bring that quote up and talk about whether or not I agree with it or not. And this is a lot funnier with anime, because they don't often have quotes, and the quotes are usually from one-sided, opinionated, I guess, reviewers who are like anime geared anyway. But here we've got Ebert and Roper say 2 thumbs up. Do I agree with that? Yes, but only because I only have 2 thumbs. If I had more, I would give it a better score. And then here I want to talk about this one. I actually read this next quote before rewatching the film. And when I first read it, I was like, yeah, they say this about literally every film that ever gets released. It says here, a phenomenal achievement. Tom Cruise's finest hour. And like I said, I was like, yeah, they say that about everything. But you know what? After rewatching this, and I should mention, I work in the visual effects industry, but my dad's been in the motion picture business my entire life. He works as a stuntman and a stunt coordinator, and I've heard stories about Tom Cruise being like one of the hardest working actors in the industry, hands down. And if you think about it, Tom Cruise never, ever takes a role that he does not devote his life to. He really brings his A game to every movie he's in. I have never seen a movie starring Tom Cruise that I felt he phoned in, whereas other actors, I feel like I see that all the time. And I gotta be honest with you, I truly do think that this is his greatest film. I think that, you know, and I should mention, he's co-producer. I mean, his name is written pretty big on the cover here. And I happen to know that he devoted a great deal of it, like 2 years prior to filming, was like devoted to learning the Japanese language, you know, getting the dialect right, and training like with swordplay, like oh my god, kendo. There we go. You know, sort of the Japanese swordplay, not necessarily fencing and whatnot. You know, and training himself for this role. Just a lot of hard work went into this. And you can tell that this means a lot to him in his performance. And now the last one I want to read is on the front. That last quote was by Bill Zwecker from Chicago Sun-Times. And this one is from Time by Richard Schickel. A movie that demands our surrender. To its energy, to its bold stroke movie making, to its acting, and above all, to its romantic vision of a lost world. I don't think that there is a more elegant way to perfectly describe this film. Do they romanticize the samurai? Yeah, they do. That's what filmmaking is, you know? And they really do a great job getting you behind the samurai's plight. You know, you are fighting for the rebellion, you know? 47 Ronin, my god, they have to romanticize the samurai way of life, because if they don't, how on earth are you going to be okay by the end of the film when all the samurai commit suicide? You know, literally, if you liked any of the characters, you lose, you know? So it's like, if they really wanted to follow in the success of this film, they could have just done a different samurai story and threw Keanu Reeves in there. It's a shame. It's really a shame. Oh, you know what? Actually, I want to talk about the special features on this DVD. This is the 2-disc widescreen edition. This has an amazing commentary by the director. It's got a History Channel look at the difference between the Hollywood story and the actual historical events that would have happened. And it's got a great like a look at Tom Cruise's journey through making this film, and the director's journey, and some great behind the scenes featurettes on how certain things were done, and you know, the wardrobe that was made for the characters, and the weapons that were crafted for the film, and the location. Man, the location. This was filmed in New Zealand, and I actually lived in New Zealand for 2 months while my dad was working on Lord of the Rings. And man, you would never guess looking at it. It's just they capture that Japanese village so beautifully that it would never cross your mind that the film was made anywhere but an actual Japanese village. It's just incredible. Now the next thing I want to talk about, the music. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Hans Zimmer, that guy. I do not have the words to describe his ability as a composer. You simply have to hear it for yourself. Now the thing that's, first of all, I don't remember the music from 47 Ronin at all, so we're not even going to talk about that. But the music in The Last Samurai, now, in any given samurai film that has ever been made, you always hear like the same thing. You know, the taiko drums, the Japanese like flutes, and just very distinctly Japanese instruments that you're used to hearing and conditioned to hearing in every Japanese samurai film. Now, Hans Zimmer could be like any other composer and say, all right, time to get a paycheck. Okay, audience, here, take my hand and I'm going to walk you through this samurai film with all the stuff you expect to hear. But no, Hans Zimmer says, all right, look, I get to control how you feel at every given moment in this film. And he's just got this amazing ability, like similar to his soundtrack for Gladiator, which is supposed to have a ancient Roman vibe to it. This film, which should have that stuff that you'd expect to hear from a Japanese samurai film, instead of having these things you expect to hear, he creates something new. He uses something, he has his own style that you hear. And the soundtracks are so amazing in that I feel like you could put them in another war film and you could watch the same sort of battle sequences with the soundtracks that belong in these other two films, and you wouldn't go, you know, there's something kind of Japanese about this, or there's something very ancient Roman feeling about this. I wonder why it sounds that way. No, it's just amazing. But at the same time, what is so crazy about it is within the context of the film, there is something distinctly Japanese about the music. There is something distinctly ancient Roman about the music in Gladiator. It's amazing. I don't contain the words to be able to describe how good he is. You simply have to hear it for yourself. Okay, now as far as memorable moments go, usually my memorable moments are really iconic images that stick out in my mind. And there is one really iconic sequence in the film that really burned into my mind ever since I saw it. And you guys got to understand that samurai armor, probably more so than being for protection, was for intimidation. And man, the guys that they're fighting, like these guys in the first battle, right when Tom Cruise is captured and brought into their village, the Japanese fighting the samurai there, they are armed with superior weapons. They have guns. They've got superior firepower. They are scared to death of the samurai as they come in through the fog. The warriors in the fog, just an amazing, amazing, iconic thing to see. It's just so, you know, actually, come to think of it, I mentioned earlier that they go out of their way, like, because they've Americanized, or not necessarily Americanized, but they've altered the history in order to make it more appealing to an American audience. Something beautiful that they did is, I mentioned that they called the Native Americans the Red Man. Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that not only do they call the Native Americans the Red Man, but they also equate them to being like the samurai and calling them things like savages with bows and arrows. And that's the mindset that Tom Cruise goes into battle with them the first time with. And then slowly over time he realizes that perhaps just because a society is different from his own, maybe they're not the savages. Maybe they're even more civilized. And you know what's amazing about it? Is that the man that fights Tom Cruise, that Tom Cruise kills, the reason why they don't kill Tom Cruise, the reason why he is brought into their village, the house he lives in that belonged to this man, Taka's husband, that he lives in this house among his family and he grows into this society, that guy was wearing red armor. He was a red man. The armor stays in the house until Tom Cruise eventually dons it himself and becomes the Red Man, the savage. He becomes what he didn't understand because he embraces it by the end of the film. And God, that is just such a beautiful, beautiful subliminal thing that they threw into the movie. Just so brilliant. Now let's see. I mentioned earlier that this film does not mess around with what language it uses. And I mentioned before that when you read text as opposed to hearing it, it can be way more impactful. And what I mean by that is, like, sometimes you'll read a book and you'll really just feel moved by the words on the pages. And then you'll see the movie adaptation where every quote in the movie seems to be directly from the book, but it sounds cheesy. And they utilize the language, the Japanese language, in a very intelligent way, so that at some point you're forced to read the subtitles. And at one such point, God, crap, I have to say something else too. I mentioned earlier, sorry about this, guys, but I mentioned earlier that that the movie does something that other samurai films don't. It looks at the honor over life mentality of the samurai versus the life over death mentality of the American. And they actually cross. Now, at one point in the film, Katsumoto is basically at a point where his samurai way says it's time to commit ritual suicide so you can die with honor. At least you can die with honor. And from an American standpoint, we look at the film as, don't give up, try to escape, you know, but for him it's like, running away is cowardly, it's not honorable. And he is struck with this honor over life mentality, and it's a burden on him, and you can see that it's a burden on him. And then Tom Cruise, who fights for life over death, and would never enter into a battle that he couldn't win because that's throwing your life away. He realizes by knowing the honor over life person, by knowing Katsumoto and getting to know him, he sees that sometimes a battle you can't win is still worth fighting. And he breaks Katsumoto out of his bonds, and he saves him. He helps him escape. And at that point, Katsumoto decides honor over life or life over death. They cross, and he, rather than take the dishonor and be dishonored by running away, he leaves to come back and fight. And at that same moment, Tom Cruise realizes that, like I said, that some battles, even if you're going to lose, are worth fighting. So he helps him, and they cross their mindsets, which is a beautiful thing to see. And then back at the village, and this is what I was trying to get to before, where they choose the language very carefully. Tom Cruise is talking to Taka's son, Higen. I think that's what his name was. And he's talking to Higen, and Higen doesn't want Tom Cruise to go into battle. He knows, basically everybody knows, that this is a battle that they're probably going to lose. And he says, I would be afraid to go into battle. And then, all this is in Japanese, so you're reading subtitles. Tom Cruise says, so would I. And then Higen says, but how? You've been in so many battles. And Tom Cruise says, and I was always afraid. And that's a line that, if you were to hear that in English, would not have the same meaning as reading the subtitles and having that impact on you. Now, there's also another part in the film, and this part's spoken in English, where Katsumoto and Nathan Algren, Tom Cruise, are talking with each other. And Katsumoto says that, you know, I'm writing a poem and I'm having trouble coming up with the ending. And he says that a man, he says that the perfect cherry blossom is a very rare thing. And a man could spend his entire life searching for the perfect cherry blossom and never find it. And it would not be a wasted life. And then at the end of the film, when Katsumoto dies, and again, Tom Cruise embraces what he once didn't understand of honor over life. And instead of, you know, waiting there and being taken as prisoner or whatever, he kills Katsumoto the honorable way, the samurai way. He stabs him and helps him die an honorable death. And as he's dying and he's glassy-eyed and it's like his last final breath, Katsumoto looks over and sees the cherry blossom and he says, it's perfect. And what that actually means is that it's not about the cherry blossom, it's about destiny. It's about living a life that is fulfilled to perfection. And for Katsumoto, what that means is fulfilling his destiny and doing everything that he was meant to do. And in that moment, he fulfills his destiny. And from there, what's so amazing about that perfection, that he actually was able to make a difference, is that from there, Tom Cruise goes to meet with Emperor Meiji. And keep in mind, Emperor Meiji is like 19 years old. And you got to understand that this kid is considered a god among men. And Katsumoto used to be his teacher. And Tom Cruise goes up to him and he says, this sword belonged to Katsumoto, your teacher. He would have wanted you to have it. And Emperor Meiji takes it. And at this point is where everything that they fought for ends up not being for nothing. And Emperor Meiji says that for years, I have dreamed of a modern Japan. You know, and a Japan that is making way to move into the future. But we cannot forget who we are and where we have come from. And he bends down on it, like he gets on Tom Cruise's level, which is unheard of for the Emperor to actually try to get on the level of somebody who's bowing before him. And he says, can you tell me how he died? And then Tom Cruise looks at him and says, I will tell you how he lived. And it's just such an amazingly written screenplay for this film. Just so beautiful. Such an amazing film on all levels. Truly, I cannot recommend it enough. Now, to come full circle with 47 Ronin, though, and talk about the ending to that film, something that I realized after watching it, and I didn't want to gripe about the historical inaccuracies, but something really bugged me about it. To try to wrap this up. So, the way that they become the 47 Ronin is that their lord, Lord Asano, is basically there's two clans. There's the Akko clan, and then there's the clan that's run by Lord Kira. Kira, by the way, is played by Tadanobu Asano, who is Kakihara in Ichi the Killer. Phenomenal actor. Really good actors in 47 Ronin. I don't know why the film ended up not being superior. No, not superior as in superior to Last Samurai. I'm just not, it's not really superior to any other film. It just feels lacking. Anyway, but Tadanobu Asano plays Kira, and basically they're like rivaling clans. And Kira hatches a plan using a witch that's on his side in order to bewitch Lord Asano and trick him into attacking Lord Kira. And you watch as the witch conjures up this blue spider creature that she uses to poison his mind, and then he goes after Kira and he sees Kira raping his daughter, and he goes to attack Kira, and then he comes out of this bewitched state, and then you see that Kira is just sleeping there and he was attacked for no reason, and Lord Asano, in order to die honorably, must commit seppuku in front of the shogun. And then that is how he dies, and all the 47 samurai become the 47 Ronin. They become masterless samurai. And then throughout the film, the plight of the film is that, and it's not hard to get behind their cause, that they're trying to seek revenge against Kira, because we watched the witch bewitch him, we watched him be wrongfully put to death, basically. And then the movie ends, and they all die, and then you're like, okay, so this is based on a true story. Well, in real life, witches don't really make blue spiders that bewitch people. That means that Lord Asano probably really attacked Kira in cold blood. And historically, I might actually find myself rooting for Kira, to say the least. So, just kind of, it's all around, the film ends up being, unfortunately, very weak. Anyway, that's my review of The Last Samurai, and my pseudo-review of 47 Ronin. And I'll probably look at 47 Ronin again in the future when it comes out on DVD. But this was released by Warner Brothers, so it should not be hard to find. I know that the Blu-ray is probably still around too, so you could easily get this off of Amazon or just basically anywhere. So let's go ahead and put it on the shelf. And if you want to check out last week's review of David Dossie, here's a link to it. If you guys want to support me, you can leave me a like, share this with your friends, give me a comment, let me know what you guys want to see in the future, let me know if you enjoy these reviews, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.